copy is going for 150. However, this one is going for 200. It's still the same thing, but of course, if you have eyesight problems, you might have troubles reading this one. So we've made a special, copy for you. So this is going for 200. If you check your program, there is a book discussion later with Pramanda Slewane. And we've also got another book by the same author, Pramanda. This one, Playing Poker with People's Lives, TUT's Persecution of a Leading Black Female Scientist. So this is also an interesting story. This is going for 210. So yeah, please, you are now informed. These are the prices. We're about to start shortly. So yeah, we can just continue mingling. But yeah, shortly we should be starting. Thank you. your presentation too, and it will be projected here on the screen. And also another thing is that, for bathroom breaks, let's try to avoid an up and down. Like let's just try to, you know, move in an orderly way, right? So I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to the bathroom when nature calls, but just try to find a respectable way. Perhaps use this, exit this side. Try to avoid, coming through this way because, of course, we will be live streaming, so we do want our thing to appear professionally to our audiences at home. So yeah, those are the basic ground rules, right, just for our engagement. So yes, for those that are presenting, I've projected my email address there. I believe that most would have my email address. So yeah, I'm just gonna quickly remove it. Then we're just gonna, like have a look at our program. So as you can appreciate, if you've seen the program already, this is not just an academic exercise, an academic conference in the pure nature of what an academic conference is, like with academic presentations. So, our conference, aims to be an intergenerational conversation, between our elders and most of us whom were born, I believe, like in the 90s, 2000s, majority 2000s, perhaps those who are staff, support, maybe somewhere in the 80s and stuff. So most of these stories that these elders have not been told before. These are the conversations we just overhear. So they've taken their time to come and be with us to share the knowledge. So let's please engage them, in a respectful way, of course. Let's, show them that we are, students, at an academic institution. Let's try to, be precise to the point. But of course, what I was saying is that they are bringing the experience, right? These are the people who were students here on campus. Some were detained. At some point, the campus was, occupied with military police. So they got to experience that. These are the stories we see when we watch some of these stories, apartheid. So we've got, the people who lived through that period, who will come and share their experiences. So we have that panel discussion, which will be chaired by Ntate Victor Khomesoana. And after that, we will have our keynote address by Dr. Aisha Omar, who will be joining us online. So we are running a bit late, so there's some adjustments that will be made to the program just in terms of the time that is, reflected here. So the time that is reflected here, of course, is not the time that we will be utilizing. So, but please feel free. Let's welcome our guests. Yes, can you please come to the stage? We are about to start. There's still enough time. So yes, we will start shortly. As you can see, for session 1, session 2, R43 is just next door. So like there are people to assist you with setting up your presentation there if like you need to project. So don't be scared. Please get in touch with one of the conference organizers. They will be of assistance. So we're about to begin with our session. Let's just get settled in. How much is this going for? Okay, so we also, as I indicated, we have our elders, and they've brought not only spoken word. Oh, okay. So 200. Also, I'm just making this. Sure. Yes, the Lion of the North, Peter Nchabeling, his family, and the national liberation struggle in South Africa. This is a book by our elder who will be a panelist. It's going for 395. However, the books, some of them will be donated to the library. You will have access to them. So yeah. Also, we've shared information with regards to the other books that are here. Reflections on the Freedom Charter, which is going for 150 and 200 rands. And we've also got African philosophy through Ubuntu, which is going for 200 rands. Please, I know we are all students, so don't worry. Some of the books will be made available to our library. But for those bareki, feel free, to come and support. Le wena ska bora moreki, like just motshware gabotse, you may, get yourself a book. Yeah, so like let's just get settled in, and then we'll begin with our opening and welcome and proceed to our panel discussion. I would like to welcome our elders who have just joined us now on the stage. I'd like to invite, everyone just to move in an orderly way. We are to begin shortly. Yeah. Okay, greetings, comrades. Uh, thank you very much for making time to come through to this, August event, where we aim to reflect on, the Freedom Charter at its 70th year and the state of emergency. at 40 years. Most of you wouldn't know what the state of emergency is, but of course we've got our panelists, our esteemed panelists, who will be introduced, who lived through that experience of being detained for 90 days without any trial, and all the stories that like they will tell us. So brace yourself. Let's just have some order. Everyone, please be seated. As I've already laid down some ground rules, let's move in an orderly way. Let's try to avoid this aisle, like for walking, since we've got cameras here. For ease of passage, let's use, like this entrance this side, and also like just try to minimize our movements because it will disturb like our live streaming. We'd also like to welcome our guests who are joining us online, those who couldn't make it physically here, but with the aid of technology and AI, we are able now to, speak with them, and they can be able to experience us in real time. So we really appreciate, like everyone that is here, even the people that are joining us from the online platform. So we're about to begin, and I'd like to call upon the school director for the School of Social Sciences, Prof. Stilosi Tole, to officially welcome everyone so that at least we can be at ease. Can we please give him a round of applause as he's ascending?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Thank you very much. Program Director, may I, on behalf of the executive management of the university, acknowledge and recognize the following offices. The Office of the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Limpopo, Prof. N.M. Mokhalong, our Deputy Vice Chancellor Teaching and Learning, Prof. R.N. Madaje, our Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Innovation and Partnerships, Professor T. Mutiba, our Executive Dean in absentia, Professor R.S. Mautu. I'm standing in for her because she's committed elsewhere. Our research professor, Professor Rafapa, deans of faculties, directors of schools, the executive director of marketing, but this morning in your capacity as a convener and facilitator of the panel discussion. Panel members, Messrs. Eleg Nchabeling, Ike Mutloung, Dr. Martin Sehlapelo, and Philip Manale. Our host HOD, or host HODs, Drs. Murubula Ngwenya, as well as Dr. Todze from the School of Education, the Department of Cultural and Political Studies, and our sister department in the School of Education, Dr. Miso, who has been standing in on behalf of the HOD during the preparations for this particular event, colleagues in the Department of Cultural and Political Studies, as well as colleagues from the School of Education, the local organizing committee, and I just single out Mrs. Dadla and Mchelela, as well as Dr. Todze, and I know that this was a collective effort. Please count yourself in. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Aisha Omar, our distinguished guests, Brahmandla Selewani, Fezeka Kwaibeni, Prof. Ramusi, Wuntatin Chabeling, all our distinguished guests. staff of the University of Limpopo, staff from marketing, our online audience, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I take this opportunity to welcome you warmly to this historic occasion at this historic institution, the University of Limpopo. I hope you will enjoy the proceedings. And I thought I could also very briefly, just to set the tone, reflect very briefly and roughly on the state of emergency that is being recognized today. I'll just share with you just a brief recollection of the events of the day, or the events leading to the state of emergency. On that morning, I can't remember the date exactly, Vic, whether it was the 14th or the 12th of June, 1985. But all I remember is in that particular day in the morning, I took a taxi to town. I think I was going to do a little bit of groceries and to attend movies in town with the hope of returning later in the afternoon. Of course, on our way to town, as we passed that intersection to Mall of the North, there's a hill or a hillock just behind that intersection. And there used to be a police station there, or something that would resemble a place where police would meet time and again. And my fellow passengers and I noticed lots of military vehicles. I think it was around 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. Lots of military vehicles. They were going up the hill. And I just concluded and just assumed that they were en route to Messina Bay Bridge border, or Mozambique or Botswana. Of course, I went on with my business in town, only to return later at around 6 o'clock. And then, well, I joined my friends, and then around 11:30, we saw a flood of lights at this gate here, next to Mamutintan. It was the very same trucks that I had seen during the day. And around 12 midnight, I learned that the state of emergency was declared, and the trucks drove into the campus, and the campus was under siege. All that we did on that particular day, we locked ourselves in our rooms and even moved chairs and tables to the doors with the hope that the police would not gain easy entry. But that did not work, because our door was broken into, and we were dragged from the room at gunpoint, escorted to the military vehicle, and we were there parked in that vehicle from around 12 midnight till around 6 o'clock in the morning. And then around 6 o'clock, we were moved from the hostel. There was an open piece of ground. It was actually a soccer field on the western side of the old cinema hall, and we were made to lie down there. We lay down there from 6 o'clock until 5 p.m. And we were not allowed to move because the soldiers were, moving around with heavy machines. And at 5 o'clock, I and other colleagues were released. But I remember one of the comrades Mpela. I think that was the last time I ever set my eyes on him, on that particular day. And I also left campus, never to return for quite some time. So it was not a very pleasant experience. And of course, allow me also, ladies and gentlemen, to reflect very briefly on the Freedom Charter, which is the subject of this two-day conference. As we were studying at this university, I noticed that there were quite a number of political organizations on campus, student structures and stuff like that. There were a group called there was a group called the Charterists, and there were an organization more aligned to the Pan-Africanist Congress, etc. And I think at our time there was also the Inkatha Freedom Party movement. Some representation of that was here on campus. And for those who belonged to the ANC, the Freedom Charter was regarded as the Bible. It was regarded as a very sacred document that was to set a vision for what should happen post-apartheid. But just like the Bible, the Freedom Charter is a subject of questions. The questions still persist today. They were questions at the time. Even today, we're still asking a lot of questions. And I also read very briefly on the reflections on the Freedom Charter. Some of the questions remain pertinent as to when it is stated in the Freedom Charter that the people shall govern. Who are we referring to? Who are these people? And the claims that are made in the Freedom Charter, who made them? To what extent were the masses of our people represented at Kliptown in 1955? And how far are we in realizing some of these claims that are made in the Freedom Charter? And of course, the Sunday Times also ran a piece, I think it's this 2 Sundays ago, and they had a picture of Kliptown, that the township is derelict and almost forgotten, that when our Deputy President Paul Mashatile visited Kliptown the last time he was there, the people do not have a toilet there. And as a result of that, his entourage had to bring in a mobile toilet for him. But the people do not have toilets. And it's a historic place where the Freedom Charter was forgotten. I mean, was launched. But it looks like it has been forgotten. It looks like it doesn't exist. It looks like it was only remembered on that particular occasion when the government had an event at that particular place. So a lot of questions persist. But I also want to indicate that it would seem that the Freedom Charter was informed by the Atlantic Charter, at least from what I have read. At least this can be confirmed by Padayashi and Van Niekerk, who have indicated that the ANC resolved around 1939 as a precondition for South Africa's participation at the peace conference in the final dismantling of Nazism and fascism in Europe, South Africa had to grant the just claims of the black majority, who are Africans, colored, and Indians, to freedom, democracy, and human decency. And at the time these claims were made, Dr. A.B. Xuma was the general president of South Africa, and a committee was set up to make these claims for the 1940 conference. And one can actually see that there's some kind of mutual influence between the Freedom Charter as it stands with the claims that were made by Dr. A.B. Xuma. And I do not wish to go into the details lest I take away from our speakers who are lined up and the panel discussion that we're going to have this morning, so that we can be fully informed, so that what I'm saying can be corroborated or can be negated. That's the purpose of having an academic debate at an institution of higher learning. We are here to enrich each other, one another's ideas and opinions, but we're doing it all for the love of South Africa and her people. May I thank you all.
Siyabonga, Prof. Thank you very much. So, comrades, feel free. You have been welcome. Feel at home. I'd like to recognize Prof. Sibanda. You're welcome, sir. So we are going to proceed now to our panel discussion. As I've indicated earlier, this is not just a normal academic conference, but of course aims to be an intergenerational conversation between us, Reinama 2000, and our elders here. So please, let's ask them questions. What happened? Did the struggle really start for us to vote? All the questions that you keep asking us in class. These are the relevant people that you should direct these questions and concerns to. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite Ntate Victor Khomeswana to give context and also just to facilitate the panel discussion. Can we please give him a round of applause as he's coming?
Thank you, Mkabatel. They say freedom was not free. And it is not free. And Prof. Sutole, there's a movie called The Equalizer. Denzel Washington is just this old man who beats people up. He never gets wounded, he never gets scratched. And in Equalizer 2, I'm sure my children, you would have seen one of the movies, Equalizer. There's a character called Miles, who is a troubled young man, probably the age of lots of the young people here, who is a very gifted artist, a talented artist, as in he can paint, he can draw, and he gets to know Mr. McCall, played by Denzel Washington. They live in the same building. And one day, Mr. McCall sees a sketchbook where he makes his sketches, and he says, I see you sign your drawings with a fist in a glove. And he says, what's this? And he says, no, it's my elder brother who was a keen boxer, and if he caught you with his right hand, you would be on your way to heaven. And then Mr. McCall asks him, does he still box, your brother? And he says, no, sadly, he died. Somebody shot him. He was not even looking for anything. He just wanted his gym bag. And then he says something very powerful that I want you all to remember. He said, my grandmother told me that if you don't remember somebody who has died out loud, they die twice. If somebody in your life who has died, you don't talk about them. They die when they die, and they die again when you forget them. This freedom that we talk about, and I'm going to just play a little game. Stand up, son. Just press that mic and tell me your name and student number. You may sit because the microphone is going to be too low. You're a tall guy. What's your name and what's your student number?
Okay. My name is Nakana Mogale. My student number is 2400800620.
24.
Yeah, 24.
What does 24 stand for?
2024.
Okay. So my student number, Nakana, is 85036 992. Ike Mutlong, press that mic and tell me your student number, please.
I don't know, but I'm sure it starts with 82.
There you go. Mandla, please tell me your student number.
I don't even remember it.
But the first two numbers would have been?
But it would have started with a 71.
Okay. Do you get the picture I'm trying to paint for you? One day you will talk about your student number, and some kids who will probably look like Teletubbies or characters out of an animation movie will say, "Huh? 2024, you were here?" So the important thing is not that. The important thing is, what do you remember and what are you doing with it? Prof. Sitole, the date you were talking about is 12 June 1986. I went to bed at MBK, room 122. And I woke up, it was a Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and I saw the police and the soldiers I had never seen in my life in one place. And that day, June 12, was to last until 1989, when the soldiers left campus. So from June 12 until 1989, we were studying here with soldiers on this campus. And because many people were arrested, and the people here will tell you stories of where they were in 1986. We're not talking about 86 state of emergency. We're talking about the 85, but I'm talking about the 86 because that was nationwide, and it changed the course of history for lots of people. State of emergency was not a joke. It was something that could suppress your rights, suppress the rights of the media to report about what's happening, and allow the state to just detain you and release you and detain you and release you and detain you. The people who are here on this panel, all of them, I mean all 5 of them, if we take the time they spend in prison and you add it up, it will amount to more than some of you and the age you have at the moment. Exactly. Now, I'm talking about prison in the 1980s, not prison in the current times. In fact, prison in the 1970s for some of the people on this panel. The reason I agreed and offered to facilitate this panel was not to say anything to impress you, but was to appeal to you to get off Instagram for a while. They are still not off Instagram. It was to appeal to you to move off those reels, those watch till the end reels. Brain dead content that our children are sometimes arrested and kept bondage by. Content that has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with your past, nothing to do with your future, and nothing to do with anything other than the belief that your minds are so idle that you don't know what to do with your time. I'm asking you to get off Instagram and get off Facebook for a while and listen to the stories, to the history of this country, the history of this campus, the history of the freedom that you enjoy. The freedom of speech, freedom to be LGBTQIA plus and say, I identify as. The freedom to protest without anybody detaining you. The freedom to speak your mind. The freedom to get an education for free. The freedom to get health care for free. The freedom to be protected as much as possible. And understand the history of that freedom and what it took. But most of all, to focus on this episode called 1985, when a state of emergency was declared on the 20th of July by a man we used to call the crocodile, the crocodile, P.W. Botha, and his Minister of Police, Louis Legeranse, and his Minister of Defense, General Magnus Malan, the three most powerful people at the time, because they could decide the fate of any one of these people standing here and everybody else, and nobody could question them. Prof. Sithole, I've never felt more powerless than the day we met the Minister of Police called Adrian Flock. It was in 1988 or 89, and they had detained some of our students here, and we did not know where they were, because in those days, nobody owed you any explanation as to where you were kept. So we had just hoped that he would tell us where they were kept. He came out of a meeting at Union Buildings with the most white shirt I've ever seen. No crease, no wrinkle, nothing. He came in with the hair done in a way I'd never seen a white man's hair comb. He was the cleanest looking white man I've ever seen. And he came in and looked at us and nodded. We were with the chairman of council, but it looked like he was meeting schoolboys. He didn't say a word. Our chairman of council said, "Hey, Honorable Minister, we were thinking, we were wondering where the students are, and all of that." And he said nothing. He nodded, and he stood up and left. That's the power that you know can take your life like that, and you can do nothing about it. We didn't even know what he was promising us. Hey, he didn't have to promise us anything. He was the powerful Minister of Police. So I'm saying all these things, and I'll close my opening remarks here so I can start with the panel. Just by asking you, for one moment, get off Instagram and listen to these voices, because these are the voices that have been suppressed for a very long time. The voices that are ignored. And the voices, in the words of Miles in the Equalizer 2, voices that are forgotten until their owners die twice. And when Donald Trump one day tells you, you are from a trashy country, and you will believe him, because you don't know your own voice. You never listen to your own voice. You have forgotten it. And by forgetting it, you killed it permanently. I'm going to introduce my panel members, and we will talk about this. First of all, on the extreme left, the author of this book, The Lion of the North, Peter Nchabeleng, his family, and the National Liberation Struggle in South Africa. The foreword is written by Tokyo Sokgwale, who is former Premier of Gauteng, and he's a former ex-Robben Island prisoner himself. But this is the man who worked at the National Intelligence Agency in the post-94 South Africa. He was there for a very long time, until working in the Inspector General's office. He was part of the First Law Clinic, the establishment thereof, and you can write a long story about him, but he studied law at this university. His student number is 82 something. His name is Mpon Chabeleng, and this Peter Chabeleng that he is writing about here was his father. So a round of applause for Mpon Chabeleng. Next to him is a man who has been, among other things, a member of the provincial legislature here in Limpopo from 2004 to 2009. He has been on all kinds of portfolio committees. I can't mention them all, health and social development, etc., etc. He was a member of the National Assembly from 2009 to 2019. He studied rural development planning at a university in Canada called St. Francis Xavier. But most of all, he's the man who can tell you about life on Robben Island, because he was there from 1976 to 1984. And when he came out in 1985, a state of emergency was declared. And not so long after, his father was killed by the police. His father was Peter Chabeleng, which means on this stage we have got two brothers, Alec Chabeleng and Mpon Chabeleng. Now some of us talk about paying the price for the struggle. We talk about being tortured, we talk about being detained, we talk about being tear gassed, we talk about being shot at, we talk about all these things. And some people talk about losing their youth and their father. In circumstances, I don't think anybody has really accounted for the death of Peter Chabeleng, who was the president of UDF in the Northern Transvaal then. So let's welcome this family, and you can see that some families had no choice. Because when Alec Chabeleng was young, and when children were playing and sitting on Instagram in today's world, his father was asking him to grow up and grow up quickly, because he needed him to run some errands. But running errands didn't mean go out and buy me bread. It meant organize a place where we can do military training. It meant go recruit people who can join the underground force of the ANC. That's the story of some young people. Now, do you see why I'm saying get off those reels for a while? And then next to him, we have somebody who has already told you that his student number was 81 something. Admitted as an attorney, I think, and in 1991 he has been an admitted attorney. He is a director in a firm called MSMM Inc., which is Maluleke Siriti Makume and Matala Incorporated. He is a litigator of note. He has done cases in criminal, in civil, in employment, in all kinds of law. He is what I call a celebrity lawyer, because among his clients you count Jub, when he was fighting the case of killing children with the crazy drag racing they were did. He defended Richard Mdluli. He defended Tso Vilagazi with the age cheating scandal. He is the man who celebrities go to when they need a lawyer. But he has been the High Court judge. He has acted on several occasions between 2008 and 2014, both High Court of South Africa and the Free State. He is a former student of the university, graduated or completed his law degree in 1986 here. His name is Ike Mutloung. A round of applause for Comrade Ike. Now I'll tell you a story about Comrade Ike. When I came here in 1985, I was a very powerful public speaker from high school. And I thought I could come in here and wow the students with my oratory skills. I went into one mass meeting at New Cinema Hall. I listened to people like him speaking, and I realized I needed to shut up for 2 years and learn. All right. These guys were no Popeye characters when they were on the stage. We also have I think he was the youngest prisoner on Robben Island. Am I right? No. Okay. But you were challenging for the record. Again, he's a PhD in information studies, but before that, before he worked for Transnet, before he studied military science in Zambia and Zimbabwe and all over, he was an activist who got convicted. And I mean, this is terrorism. He was charged with terrorism. I don't know how old he was in terms of Section 29 of Internal Security Act. He was sent to Robben Island after joining MK in 1986. But he did 5 years on Robben Island. In fact, the funny thing about him is I think he left Robben Island after Madiba. So he can claim to have been there after Madiba had left. So what are the people keeping a young man on Robben Island if they have released the most dangerous man? Tells you something, that maybe Madiba was not the most dangerous man. He wrote an anthology of poetry. Go and look for it. It's called A Peek Inside a Political Prisoner's Heart, because he writes poetry as well. It was published in 2014. You can find it as an e-book, so go and look for it. You might be enthralled by what he writes there. He goes by the name Dr. Martins Tlapelo. A round of applause for Dr. Martins. Now, as you can hear, in 1980s, we used to call each other comrade a lot. Comrade did not mean anything other than someone you can trust, someone you can go to war with, someone you could put your life in his hands, or they can put their life in yours. But today, there are not many people you can call comrades, because comrades in 1994, Prof. Sitole, changed and became something else. But this man here is one I can still call comrade and not be afraid. He's a former student of the University of Limpopo himself, but I must tell you, I knew him for 8 years before in the charge office, and they look at you and say, you are a free man, Sakile Kheta, go home, and say, but on second thought, we are detaining you again. I knew him as the son of Muruti Lekheta at Leboa Khomo, but he is somebody who's going to tell us about COSAS a bit. Because when you were in high school, your activism was the initiation in an organization called the Congress of South African Students. And he's going to share, he's standing in for Philip Manale, who could not make it. He's detained somewhere, but he's a good kind of detention. He's not the detention without trial that we used to know about. He's just delayed, and unfortunately we had to go on. So a round of applause for our panel. I'm going to ask them to make about 3 minutes opening remarks each, starting with Elek Nchabele. Because I think in 1985 you were in prison, right? No, you had just come out. Your recollection of the state of emergency and your first encounter with the Freedom Charter. Please, just switch on that mic and speak to us.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. As I said, my name is Elek Mamarasen Chabele. I was never a student at this campus, but I stayed at this university for about nearly 3 years, in and out of the the campus of University of the North, as a political activist who was working with people at the university who were students. But as time went, I ended up even having a meal card.
Can you hear him?
Oh, you can't hear me. Oh, my voice is... Yeah, so when the emergency was declared, the first one, I just arrived from Johannesburg. That I'll take from between Johannesburg and Teflop. And we had units at the University of students who were involved in the political underground of the Umkhonto we Sizwe and the ANC. that time, and majority of them were activists in Azaso. When I first landed at Mankweng at this university, I just came out of prison after serving about 8 years in prison. And some of the people I met, some of them were lecturers, like Ndate Louis Mguni was a lecturer at the University of Philosophy. And Maristel, I was working at admin, and there was also lots of other people who were involved in the underground of the progressive movement in this. So, and our mission was to ensure that we deepen and broaden the theater of revolution through intensified political education. Amongst others was to make sure that the Freedom Charter becomes like a Bible. People took it like a Bible, that you can't even question it. And we're saying that you can engage with the Freedom Charter, you can question it, you can challenge it, but come up with something different that you think will be better than the Charter. And most of the people we engaged with at this campus felt that the Charter they felt that it was a minimum demand. It felt like a minimum demand of the people of South Africa, particularly the students at TEFLO who saw themselves going beyond the Freedom Charter. They actually wanted a socialist Azania, a socialist South Africa, whatever they called it to be. So that was my time when I arrived at this university as a non-registered student. I remember there was a time when the emergency was declared that the Professor Mohogong issued a notice that I've tried everything in my powers to get rid of non-registered students at campus. I'm now going to use my authority. And the most interesting thing was that warning by Professor Mohogong became a topic in us also about the relationship between power and authority. So he gave us a political discussion, a political topic to deal with. So most of the people who were here at that time understand well the relationship between power and authority. So in brief, that is what I found when I got here. And it was quite scary because for the first time, people will talk openly about the ANC, which was a bent organization. For me, it was really difficult because I went to jail for even propagated ideas of the ANC. And now this time the ANC was unbent, Komangwen. It was no longer a bent organization at this moment.
Tendency of somebody is to look at the person they are speaking to so that you can have the right eye contact with the audience. You talk about Azaso. I don't think students here know what Azaso is. Comrade Ike, what was Azaso? Is this what we call Sansko today? And when he talks about Freedom Charter being accepted as the minimum, when I got here in 1985, there were many T-shirts with the Freedom Charter printed on them. Explain to us the atmosphere that prevailed on campus in the early to mid-80s with regard to the Freedom Charter and what it meant to the organization of the student body in general.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, it's not an easy task. I'll attempt to deal with it.
It's amazing that all of you are so soft-spoken.
Even me.
When you spoke without
Yeah,
Please speak to the mic as close as possible, like this, you know, like that. Yeah.
No, Mr. Chairman, I think you're making my task a little bit more difficult. Why don't you treat me the same like you treated Alec? Okay, no, I'll make it easy for myself. When I first arrived here in 1982, those were like the formative stages of AZASO, Azanian Students Organization. It was so formative that we used to meet for the first time after I had arrived. We would meet in a single room. Those who were saying, hey, we want to form this thing as ASO. With time, we moved to a double room, okay? And down the line, we ended up meeting in what we then used to call the cinema hall. That's how AZASO really developed, and ideologically, I think we were a little bit more defined than now. We understood what being a so-called charterist meant. It meant those who really ascribed to the ideals enshrined in the Freedom Charter. And it was not long, because we used to have very hectic mass meetings, like Victor has said. It was not long that we met opposition from Azanian Students Movement. And historically, I'm told, I was not there, but it was around the same time. I'm told that AZASO actually was a formation by AZAPO. And then the charterists hijacked it. And then AZASIM came by, very, very dynamic young men at the time. Bokabelo Lengane, Tsepo Sibusi, and so on. Very articulate. Up to today, I think you can't find more articulate people better than in AZAPO. Yeah. So they came in, but when we looked back, and I'm trying to get towards the end. When we look back, we thought we were privileged to have that opposition, because we then, most of us realized that choosing between AZASIM and AZASO was not like choosing between Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs. You had to understand why do you go with AZASO? Why do you go with AZASIM? So it doesn't mean because you have opposition, it's all bad. Sometimes it helps to have opposition. That much for AZASO. Then, fast forward, I'm here in 1982. By 85, I had a roommate. He's late, the late Alfred Mabake Makaleng. He was the biggest friend of mine that I came across on this campus. And when I taught him a few things, I remember wherever he came from, here in Limpopo, he didn't know when you're doing your washing, you start with the white shirts and then what and what. He would take everything, including the techies and the jerseys, into everything. We became such great friends. And Alf then, unfortunately, he had to leave university because of what we then were calling Rule 19.2. It's a semester system. If you didn't get sufficient credits, you don't come back for the next semester. That's how I lost my roommate. We were roommates in the first year. But he became such a prolific political activist. By 1983, he was the regional organizer of SAU, South African Allied Workers Union. It's no longer there. In this region, and when the UDF was formed, naturally Alf also became a regional organizer here. That's the kind of person he was. And then talking about the state of emergency, in 1985, Alf was detained. And I remember that when he came out, he told me that, hell, I was assaulted, seriously. Somewhere they would take him, they took him to a place where he says they were making him sit in a ditch like a hole. And then they poured petrol on him, telling him, or no, unless he tells them the truth, they're going to set him alight. But he came back and he told me, and he scared the lights out of me because he told me, hey, there was a certain picture. We used to call the bus of the university school, Naribitsang, whatever. But he said there's a picture of me and him inside. They were saying, where is this A team? So you can imagine how I felt. 1986, but he came back because that was that state of emergency. Then he came back, then they arrested him in 1986. And my dearest friend never came out alive. That's how I've left this world. I remember I was at home and then having escaped from the university, 1986, because I was here to write an agrotet. You know what is an agrotet, Mos? Yes. And the only reason why I came back for the agrotet, I didn't write private law. Because the police who killed Ndatin Chabiling, they had stabbed me with an okapi on both buttocks. Here on campus, when they were arresting us. Alf was arrested, I was at home. The next thing I hear that on radio that he was flown from here, Petersburg hospital to Joburg, what was then Joburg Jen. Now it's Charlotte Matreke, yeah. And he arrived there, he was brain dead. So for me, the state of emergency is something that I'll never forget, and the consequences thereof. Having said that, I think that should suffice, because as far as the Freedom Charter is concerned, I can tell you, this morning I talked to one of my younger brothers, the one who comes immediately after me. I was telling him I'm coming here, this is the topic. He said to me, Ekwaito, topic here, hey, you are out of time. So, and he made what I thought was a profound point, because he said that was 70 years ago, followed by the Constitution, which has some remnants of the Freedom Charter. And now we're talking what is being called as a national dialogue. I don't know what is intended thereby. You know, if I was in court, I would then say, my Lord, unless you have anything else that you want me to talk about.
But before you step down, I want you to talk about your escape from campus with the state of emergency of 1986.
Yeah,
the 12, because you had to escape in very funny circumstances. We say funny now in hindsight, but it wasn't funny then. How did you escape from campus on June 12, 1986, when the second state of emergency was declared?
It was 1986. I hope my wife is not listening. Sure, because my wife comes, I met her here, and we're still married up to today. Yeah. Okay? Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, so 1986, my wife had already left this university. Me, I had come for the agrotet, but I had a good lady friend at the VH. So I decided to spend the night there. And the next thing, here comes in an army of soldiers. The campus was under siege. So people would scream like, police on campus, police on campus. Then I woke up and I ran down the stairs from 3rd floor to the ground, and I was running towards the fence because I wanted to get out of this campus as soon as I can. And guess what? When I got to the fence, there were soldiers all over around the fence. I had to go back. And the only way I escaped is that I went back to my good friend. Now we were battling, what do I do? Because I had been arrested before. You remember, we were 18 arrested here on campus. And I knew that I will not escape. They know me. No, there's no way I'm going to escape. So I had to ask her, and we devised a plan. She gave me her gown. No, sure. She gave me a gown. I had a bogat, what do you call it, a jean. It was called HR, with many buttons on both sides, and some sandal, which was white in color. We had two versions, one for ladies, one for guys. That other one was for ladies and guys. I had it on. I put on the gown, and they were watching. They were all over, from VH through VF, next to the dining hall there. And some of them were busy there, like obviously in the foyer. I passed. I went to the room because I used to stay at MBK. And then I took whatever bag, little bag, anyway, I was here for an agrotech. And down next to the gate, this old post office gate, you never saw how happy I was that I came out of this campus alive. And I never looked back. So that's how I escaped. And like you said, Vic, for someone who didn't really experience what we experienced in then, you'd think like it sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. A round of applause for Alec Nchabeling and Ike Mutou. Sakile Kheta. Alex spoke about underground. He was not a student here, but he was operating from here. And then he talked about Azaso, then he talked about MK. Please explain, for the benefit of those who might not have understood, the 4 pillars of the struggle and how they came together as one, without one pillar interfering with the other. For example, if you were not underground or part of MK, you couldn't ask him as Alec Nchabeling, so what mission are you on today? But you would listen to him when it was the right time to. Just explain about the interplay of these 4 pillars quickly, and how you as a high school learner then would have been part of the mass mobilization, underground and MK at the same time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Sakile Kheta, representing the so-called the shock troopers of the revolution. As we mark 40th anniversary of the youth uprising, 1985 to now, I think the question may be very, very relevant. We are the generation that was mobilizing people in the townships, in the rural areas, to join the struggle. That's one area. The other area was that as we mobilize people, it meant we had the correct theory, the correct understanding of the South African situation. Hence, we were able to mobilize people. As we are mobilizing people with the correct theory that we imbibed from Bob Blessing Mpela, from Peter Mokaba, from Prince Mafojane, Mandla Zwane, and others, we were able to contribute to the pressure that was required at the time. Because we are mobilizing people, we have the correct theory, we became time-tested leaders at the time to be able to link up with the country in responding to the clarion call of O.R. Tambo. As that was the case, the total impact was to get international support. That's how intertwined the 4 pillars of the struggle were. So, as I said, I represent the shock troopers of the revolution. I'm not undermining the contribution made by the 1976 1976 generation. But our generation as well had so much impact that the banning of COSAS, the banning of other organizations as well, was a clear indication that the pressure we are mounting as a result of the teachings of our forebears was bearing fruits. The banning of COSAS suggested that we no longer had anything to, any programs to follow. But we then came Transvaal Student Congress, Transco, to continue pushing the government to respond to our demands. As COSAS, we just took one item out of the bouquet of items from the Freedom Charter, that we want free education, we want the people's education. When you get, your generation got free stationery, it was as a result of COSAS. It was as a result of the dedication of people of my generation. Thank you very much. I think I've responded now.
Yeah, your father was a priest. And I know you could have been a professional singer coming from... No, it's actually true. You haven't heard this man sing. No, we're not going to make him sing. I'm wanting you to paint the picture of the contradiction and more the conflict between what could have been a father trying to raise a son and what was the national imperative and the dilemma that parents faced, knowing the injustices of apartheid, but also knowing the brutality of the government, which was getting more brutal, and now being able to console themselves about the possibility of losing children too early. Just paint that picture for us, because I don't think we talk about it enough.
I don't know how to approach it, but anyway, when things were tough in the country, there were only two safe places. One was the gravesite, the other was the church. People took cover by Bokereke. Others would just run to the gravesite and you show or no, these guys may not come here.
You're not joking about the gravesite.
I'm not joking. It's a serious affair. Because of people coming to church, running from the police, my parents were conscientized, became conscious of the developments in the township, the developments in the country. And they, in some instances, my father as Moruti would have to negotiate with the police to let these children go to school because they are wearing new school uniform anyway. And setting dogs on them without a reason didn't really make sense. In my father negotiating with this police, he got agitated too. Moruti is a human being, it's not like a road sign. So definitely that interaction made him understand my position. Harboring people in the church precinct or premises mobilized me. The impact of the police and the discussions my father had made him understand that there's no way you're going to stand by and watch. That's one area that assisted me, at least, to make my parents understand what I got myself into. Thank you.
Let's talk to the young terrorist. Martin Setlapelo, you were convicted of terrorism. How old were you? And by the way, let's just remember the word terrorist was being used in a very vilifying manner. There were radio drama series that were written on the SABC about Bachushechi, people who are going to kill people, who are going to kill your mother, senior, and they would literally create heroes out of the police that were fighting terrorists. Now, you became one when you were in grade 10. How did you manage that?
Thank you and good morning. I want to say, firstly, allow me to not answer your question directly, but by making a general comment that when we sit here in front, there is a little bit of an injustice in the sense that, and especially the way the panel was introduced, right? It may create an impression that only boys were involved. And I think it is not correct. It is just one of those, I call it a mishap in terms of how the panel was constituted. Because there are quite a lot of girls and women then who took a great part in the struggle. I come from Seshego, and we were part of what were called at that time the youth congresses, right? And I know, for example, here in Mankweng was one of the very prominent young, I will say girls, she's now on pension. Ifodia Ngadimeng, and in Seshego there were quite a lot of them. So I just want to say that it is important for people just to think that the type of people represented here represent the people who were involved in the 80s. Now, maybe if I were to start in terms of when you talk about young people who were terrorists and things like that, there was a concept called a baby terrorist or something like that, or something like that, and things like that. So I was indeed very young, but I also want to say that I was not the youngest. There were other people who were much younger than me. And I also want to say that it reflects maybe on the question you had asked Saki here, in terms of the different elements of struggle that were involved. Because I got involved in the struggle, I think, from 1978, 1980, I was still in high school. And got involved in the youth congress in Azaso, and I joined the Umkhonto Wesizwe. I was then sent to Robben Island, and I also spent some time in exile. So there is this fake division that creates an impression that life is a set of compartments of where people are and so on. But life is what life is, and you find yourself where you find yourself, right? And you have people who get involved for different reasons at different stages. And why probably I might have got involved at a very, very young age is because, and I'll give you a very simple anecdote. Like I said, I come from Seshego, and as opposed to people like Alec, who come from Apele, very far from town. So, yes, the village boys. So my father sent me to, it was the first time I go to town alone, right? Sent me to say, go and buy a packet of beans in this shop. You know where this shop is, right? I then go, I think it's in corner Resik and Landros Mare in town. I then go there, get on a taxi, I get into the shop, I pick a basket, and I try, it's like a pick and pay sort of, like, you go there. And then I tried to walk to the aisle to get, and somebody then approaches and says, "Unyaganga mo lebenkeleng." I think, "What are you doing here?" I say, "No, I'm coming to buy beans." And he says, "Don't you see that there are no people like you in here?" Ask, "What do you mean?" He says, "No, people like you go and buy there at the window. So you actually have to go out." I ended up not buying the beans and realizing that something must be done. And I think it explains to you that. I can give you other anecdotes, but I think this is just enough.
And how did you explain to your father that you didn't bring back the beans? Because you had suddenly got a religion about racism and wanting to fight it by holding back your buying power.
Okay. I had to explain to him. He understood, I think, because I didn't get any hiding of anything. But there's quite a whole lot of specific experiences that you then have. And I think I also had a mother who was very much politically aware, because she used to tell me about things like Hoshinyabela, something that very few people knew about, and said, Hona le Nyabela, and this is and that what she did in terms of supporting Skukune and things like that. So I think I was happy, I was lucky in that sense.
Your decision to join MK, to take up arms now against the apartheid system, for a young person, explain to me what needed to possess you. I mean, what shaped your belief that you could take on the might of the apartheid government militarily, and that decision and activating it?
I will tell you another anecdote, right, which happened much later, right? Around 1985, there was this heightened activity. We talk about, there was something called the education crisis. And we went, at that time, I was studying at Stotolwane, right? We went to one of the village to try to organize the community there to participate in the education development. There was an idea of developing what was called the education charter. And I then, with two other comrades, visited Ntuna Yamola. And she says, she speaks to us Kastebele, and she says, "Yeah, lena lebomang lena na re lega fenya makgoa, when even Mosotho cannot even make a simple thing like indrafola, just a piece of wood with 4 pieces at the you can't even make a table. And you then say you want to fight this system, right? But what then happens is that you realize that it has been done before at the same time, right? Because at this stage, and I think because of this history I'm telling you about my mother, my father, and so on, you realize it has happened before. It's that change doesn't come from heaven. You have to fight for it. And that is what, so I think, made me realize. Because you realize that when you try to move to this corner, you can't do anything. I wanted to, for a number of reasons which will take long, to become a pilot, right? An aircraft pilot. I was in Form 2 at that stage, right? And then I realized that maybe I must come and learn how to become a pilot. There was an Air Force base here in Polokwane. I walk to the Air Force base and I say, I want to become a pilot. What does it require? I'm stopped at the gate. I've read the books about how you should do it. I stop at the gate and they say, no, black people are not trusted. You can't be a pilot, right? In order for you to be a pilot, you need to be a soldier, at least for 7 or 8 years, so that the defense force can accept you, so that you are now trustworthy. But I know that if you spend 7 years in the defense force, you are now too old to train as a jet pilot, because you need to be about 22 years old to be that. So I then applied to say, all right, I'm going to study engineering, aeronautical engineering at Wits. For me to be admitted, I had to write to the Minister of Education. No, Minister of Education. I remember I wrote the letter to the Minister of Education to say, why don't you go to TEF or any other black university, right? The minister agrees so that I can go and study at Wits. I arrive at Wits, right? I say, I want rest. They say, no, you must write to the Minister of Home Affairs to get permission to stay in town, right? I write, the minister refuses, right? So I stay in Mufulo, there's a rest there. So I'm one of the students there. I think if I'm not mistaken, Dali was part and parcel of the students there. I arrived there, we are about 300 students doing first year. About 6 of them were blacks, Africans, out of the other 300, right? The first thing at school, I was maybe one of the top students in this at school. When I arrived there, I'm one of the last, right? Now, the first thing is, the reason is, right? They teach calculus there, right? And in our own schools, they say, no, black people cannot study calculus. They learn vector algebra and other things. So all the other 300 students have done calculus before at high school. All of us have never done calculus, but you are on the same class and you must all pass. So you realize there is nowhere where you can run away except fight the system.
Well, all doors are closed. The cornered rat will bite the cat, the Chinese say. Mponcha Beleng, you already had a brother who was in trouble with the apartheid regime. Your father was under constant harassment. What was it like to grow into a family like yours? And what is your assessment, now that you have written this book, of the conditions that led to the state of emergency? And just talk about the Freedom Charter and its significance still, because I want to hear how it was almost the Bible. I think Alec talked about it being the automatic, is a no-brainer. This is the only, unless you have something better. Just share with us your perspective as the child of someone like Peter Nchabeleng, growing up in the area far from town, witnessing what your brother, maybe knowing some of the things, not knowing others.
Thank you very much. I think I was privileged to be born from a family of political activists. It was really good for me because when my father in 1963 was arrested for when he was found in possession of a Freedom Charter, and I was unborn, and I was really prejudiced. Me and my mother, and my brothers who were in existence then. It was bad because when he was facing that trial of being in possession of a Freedom Charter and also being a member of a banned organization, at that time the ANC was already banned. And then, and I was unborn at that time. It was really not good for a single parent to raise, to be not without the support of the other spouse in that situation. But the worst thing was that he was then later denied bail, despite when the lawyer said to address the court and said, the spouse of this man is heavily pregnant, is about to give birth. The wife needs the support of this man. And then the bail was rejected still. And then I come across that situation when I'm doing my own research. I didn't know about it. That kind of detail was when I was reading the court record. I said, oh, this is me, who was unborn at the time, and the court is discussing about me, and that this man, the wife needs the support because he's about to give birth. And then he was given 3.5 years, half of which was suspended. And then immediately after the sentence, there were greater charges of sabotage. Immediately, without being released. And then, which resulted in me not having seen my father till 1972. Because he was then, from there, never went home and was sentenced to 8 years in Robben Island. So I only knew my father in September 1972. So the significance of this story is that he was actually, the first charges was that being in possession of a freedom charter. Now, actually, that also prompted me to say, but what is this freedom charter? I then knew about the freedom charter when he was released in 1972. Because when he was released, he began to amass his own literature, which he hid somewhere, I don't know, maybe gave it to friends. But when he was released, he brought a lot of literature, most of which were banned. And amongst them was the Freedom Charter, I noticed. Because when we went to the crawl, you remember, Alec, you were there, to bury in the goat's crawl during the night, we buried the Freedom Charter plus other banned literature so that the police must not see it. Because the police were conducting regular searches then. And then we dig a hole in the night, but it was Alec and Lituli, my brother and my father. I was actually at the entrance, preventing the goats from going out as they do that. So this was, then I actually also got to know about the Freedom Charter and to learn about it around 1972. I was about 7 years old then. So it was very important for me. But I found that currently, with my own book, that this Freedom Charter was really a document that articulated the aspirations of the people of South Africa when they met in Kliptown, and then they said this document should be the cornerstone of our liberation fight. And I found it that this was well crafted in my own view. It was actually consulted upon, as I read its history, the unemployed workers, the domestic workers, all other workers participated in its drafting. But then I took it to check, but this, how is it being given to today? And I found I was comparing the preambles of the Freedom Charter and the Constitution. They are almost the same. You can go there and check. The wording may differ somehow, but the preamble of the Constitution and the Freedom Charter, they are almost the same. And the Bill of Rights, which is the Chapter 2, contains some of the aspirations stated in the Freedom Charter, the rights. You can call it either through horizontal or vertical application. The state, the power. It was meant to cue the injustices, even the Constitution itself, of what happened, the rights, the protected rights, the labor rights. It's almost Section 23 of the Constitution almost give effect in the form of signposts, of course, to the Freedom Charter to a certain extent. The problem may be at implementation level, and maybe the Section 25, which talks about land, because I mean almost 31 years down the line, there is still this grappling. 7% of the white population is still in possession of a large portion of the land. But then the government is trying to address it 31 years down the line, and then Trump, the whites go there and complain. And then as if they want to reverse the gains of freedom, because part of the Freedom Charter, what they are trying to address now, without compensation, expropriation without compensation, is spoken about that in the Freedom Charter, the land belongs to those who work on it. Now, what about the principle of people shall share in the country's wealth? Are we sharing? What is it's still something that we have to interrogate. By sharing, what does it mean? Work and security, that there shall be work and security, while almost about more than 50% of the youth are unemployed. So some of them, but the Constitution remains intact insofar as giving effect to the Freedom Charter. But the issue is that the Constitution just deals with these things as signposts. And always, if you check the sections of the Freedom Charter, there will be something that says there shall be national legislation to give effect to this. So that is I think I will just stop there for now.
Thank you. And this one would be for anyone and everyone. If the Freedom Charter was so precious and people were willing to pick up arms to defend it, and some would rather die for this, and it was so widely accepted by people, the populace, what did we miss then? I'm trying to say the level of consciousness that seemed to cut across young people in primary school, to priests, to business people, to students at universities and lecturers. How then does this 70-year-old document remain just that, a vision of the future? Because if you then check and analyze it, so I suppose I'm asking you you were part of this mass mobilization, conscientization, you were interrogated and asked about the Freedom Charter, what's wrong with you? How do you explain then the fact that we are still here 70 years later, or 30 years later, 31, and we are battling with some of the basic things, whether you took land, you took business? I mean, who wants to hazard a guess? Alec? And I want to see if there are 2 or 3 questions, because we are not going to do too much of it, because they are setting the tone for the other presentation, so I don't want to take too much time.
Let's hear one or two people responding from the panel. Alec and then Martin.
I say this reminds me of what happened in Zimbabwe during their struggle at that time. But during the negotiations, the Lancaster talks and all, there was an interview where Nkomo was asked questions about Mugabe and what do they call this here one? the patriotic front, as they called it. And I remember Nkomo saying, they were asking, you know, what kind of system are you going to bring, economic system are you going to bring in Zimbabwe? He said, no, it's simple. You bring money, you get products. And he said, the war is about land, and that private ownership of the land is foreign ideology. That is what Nkomo said. And he was asked about his relationship with Mugabe and ZANU, because ideologically they were going different ways. And he said, no, they said, no, but how are we going to work with Mugabe? What do they call it now, Mugabe? ZANU, because they are Marxists and all that. And he says, no, Robert is not a Marxist. He's a Catholic intellectual. So well, as Umzabala's was going on, things did not go the way we planned them to, or we wished them to go. We were fighting for seizure of power in this country, to seize power from the white minority regime, and then implement our programs. And the programs of the revolution were centered around the Freedom Charter. There were many other documents that the ANC and the liberation movements wrote. Mind you, the ANC was not the only liberation movement in this country. We had the Pan-Africanist Congress. We had other smaller parties, both Donsosa, I call it Donsosa. The peasants in the Eastern, the rural people in the Eastern Cape used to call it Donsosa. It's Abduza. There was Abduza, New Unity Movement, Azanian People's Organization, different organizations, but all of us, our focus was on taking power from the white minority regime. So, because we did not take this power according to the way we had planned to do, things changed. We had to go through negotiations, and when you negotiate, it's a give and take. You lose some, you gain some, but the struggle continues.
But what I'm saying is, yes, negotiation came, and he says that the Constitution itself mirrors the Freedom Charter in many respects. So even in the negotiated settlement, the doors of learning and culture shall be open to all. Okay? If you compare Leboa Khomo High today and Kuro, the emergence of private education says something is not working in public education, and the majority of that is black. There are white schools in Polokwane that are just as competitive as the private schools, and then there are schools that are neglected. So I'm asking, even after the negotiated settlement, okay, Martin, do you see my question?
I do.
Because I don't want us 70 years later to fail to break down what went wrong, because then the national dialogue will become another clapdown, and we will wait for 70 years, which will be a disaster, will be a failed state in the real sense.
I do hear the question, and I think the question is the wrong question. And I also think that most people deal with it in the wrong way when they talk about the Constitution, right? Because it's the same question. The Constitution does not have hands, doesn't have a brain, it doesn't have feet, it doesn't act. It is people who act. And if we, as the people of South Africa, do not make the necessary action, we will still talk in 100 years' time with nothing. We will say, there is a Freedom Charter, this is what it says. There is a Constitution, This is what it says. But if we don't make it happen, it will never happen. It's just a piece of paper with words.
What does act mean? Ike?
Please allow me not to answer that question. I was just, yeah, I was just following up. You know, I subscribe to a school of thought that says the beginning of wealth starts with ownership of the land, isn't it? And if you look at our constitution, for me that constitution, you can tear it up. It means very little, really. There's one clause in that constitution, that's section 25. That section is responsible for where we are, okay? Because what it does, it makes sure that it protects white privilege, and it makes sure that we don't interfere with the question of land, okay? The distribution of land or its ownership. Now, there's a school of thought, I'm told, because Madiba was still there, when Cyril led all these discussions and they ended up with that clause. The idea was that then they were confident, our forebears, that look, we know we have the numbers. Once we get into that parliament and we have the necessary majority, we're going to change it. And they didn't. The last time we had a majority was when Thabo Mbeki was the president, isn't it? Yeah, the 2/3 majority. Yeah, so, and we didn't change it. And now we're in a bigger mess. Because now, if you're still with the ANC, now we're talking 40%. And then now you ask yourself, is there any realistic hope of us in parliament and through parliament getting to change that piece of legislation? Now, there's the Expropriation Act, which was passed last year. That act, with the greatest of respect to whoever drafted it, with the greatest of respect, the act gives an impression that it seeks to address the question of land. But if you know what we know, I've been an attorney now in private practice 34 years, isn't it? I can tell you, if you go and try and expropriate anybody's piece of land now, they'll take you to court. It will take 2 to 3 years to run through the High Court. And then if they lose, they will run you through, or you will take them on appeal if they win, to the Supreme Court of Appeal. You're looking at another 2 to 3 years. Okay? And if it will not end there, then it goes to the Constitutional Court. So that piece of legislation, that Expropriation Act, I think even the name, the naming is a misnomer. It will achieve nothing, as far as I'm concerned.
Are you not being defeatist?
No. Look, now that you have asked me pertinently, I've become a chronic pessimist. But I believe that with time, maybe when I'm no longer alive, our children will get it right, like the action we're talking about. As you know, they say every generation will have a mission. If you don't choose it yourself as a generation, especially as a youth, then history will impose a mission on you. And with this 70-60% of unemployment rate in the country, it's not sustainable. The action we are calling for, which we may not know what form it will take, it will happen. That's my view.
Got you. No, I understand. Anybody else before we just wrap up, because Saki?
On action, I think the intensity of the struggle which led to the banning of COSAS, it in itself showed that in action a lot could be done, a lot could be moved. We had the fees must fall. The action of the students really shifted the needle. Today, a lot has been achieved from the Fees Must Fall campaign. So, taking action does not necessarily mean you are counter-revolutionary. Does not suggest that you are undemocratic. Suggests that you are using your freedom correctly to achieve the required result. So I think taking action must be in context, must be responsible, but must achieve the required results. So that's the action that Comrade Alec was referring to. Thank you.
Okay, Alec, you were in MK. I mean, do you believe we are really, like former President Beki said, teetering on the brink of an Arab Spring because of this unfulfilled Freedom Charter in its... Do you believe we are teetering on the brink of an Arab Spring? We are talking about the Freedom Charter that's perfect, but we haven't acted on it. We haven't done enough to make it a reality. Former President Thabo Mbeki says we are teetering on the brink of an Arab Spring.
Anything is possible. You see, like Monare said, that Martin also, that this document cannot implement themselves. They are just guidelines. But people must do something, take action and change situations. And if you see the way things are going in the country, people are becoming more vocal. And of course, we have the advantage that there's a democracy, and in this country, you cannot be locked up for speaking your mind as different from in the past. So there is freedom of speech, freedom of association. So, and when people are not, have got all those rights to associate and express themselves, then there is hope that something will happen.
But that's not the national dialogue. That's not what we need.
No, the national dialogue, I'll say it is necessary for South Africans to sit down and talk, because the last time when South Africans sat down to say, where are we going from here, was in 1955. There was never such a big get-together of South Africans to bring minds together and say, where to from here? So this will be the first time since then. There have been other codesas and other things, but they were not involving masses of people and all sectors of society. They were not.
Okay, we're out of time. I just want to see if there are 2 or 3 questions. And some of them might not be answered by this panel, but will set the tone for the speakers to come. But let's be as crisp as possible. Show me your hands if you want to say something, so I can gauge how much time we need. Okay, I can't see. I see one hand here, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we can manage if we are crisp. Where do we start? Let's start with the young people.
Greetings to the House. My question is, what advice would you give to the youth who wants to keep the Freedom Charter alive?
Right, excellent. Thank you. Very direct question. Your neighbor there.
Okay, greetings. My question is that, don't we think that the values of the Freedom Charter or the objectives of the Freedom Charter, there were those whom were prioritized than others? Because we can see that some of the values of the Freedom Charter were gained through people shall govern, one of that values, which was prioritized. Obviously, people of South Africa gained governance, but then they failed to attain equal education in South Africa, and the land is still in the hands of the minority group. Don't we think that it is time where, as a generation, as Frantz Fanon would say, that each and every generation has its own mission, and it's either it's going to fulfill that mission or betray it. Isn't it the time where the youngest generation can come up with their own mission, being given a platform to execute their own mission, so that they either fail or fulfill it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to sweep through the questions, and then, because some of them will be related, I'll come back to you. Let me take this question here.
Oh, thank you very much. My question is, LB Sek, the former Constitutional Court judge, said that as much as some individuals, including politicians, are trying to discount the role played by the Freedom Charter, South Africans will never allow the Freedom Charter to be relegated into the dusty archives of South African history. So, as you, the men who have been there before, what would you say that, how would you support the statement of South Africans will never allow the Freedom Charter to be relegated into the dusty archives of South African history? What is it that you can say that South Africa is doing to ensure that the Freedom Charter, it is not relegated into the archives of South African history? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Last one on this side. At the back there, I can't see very clearly.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you. Go ahead. No,
So
it's
yeah,
true. Yeah, you go ahead.
I'm John Mamabolo. So I'm a farmer. Even I'm a student here at the school. So Kikwela for Panelist almost Batroka for another leader, almost post apartheid, because it's a level something. Humani freedom, but are we really free? Because before do you guys see freedom? Because we are still deprived. Back then, black people didn't get education, meaning we couldn't go and get work. Right now, black people have education. We even have the master's degrees, and we have so many degrees, but then we still don't have work. So basically, focus not only on where we are oppressed, but we must also focus on currently we are still oppressed, and what are the views and what are the objectives that we are going to come out of this meeting with. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Daddy. I'm glad to see a young farmer who's also a student. Maybe that's what we need. Start looking around ourselves and free our minds as well, and realize we've got the means around us. Right here. Is your hand up? Both of you. Okay, let's make it quick. Go on. No, yeah, I'm with you. CAE. No, you, or is the mic not working? Oh my, okay. All right, go and sit with the, okay, don't switch on your mic unless you are speaking, please. You can disturb, yeah, go ahead.
Greetings to the House at large. I'm Letsalo Bekina, and then my question goes to the House at large. In what ways does the Freedom Charter continue to influence contemporary politics in South Africa? This is in relation to, as we all know, that looking at how our political system is structured, we still have people who are being deprived of basic needs such as access to water, shelter, and all that. And access to water, the Charter's principles are often invoked on socio-economic rights, equality, and government. Why don't we just take action instead of always having conferences? I'm not saying that they are not important, the conferences and debates, but rather how about we as the citizens of South Africa take action? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go here and then move across. Can't you give one person the questions? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Makofani Boni. I've got a question to Mr. Nchabeli. You mentioned something.
Which Mr. Nchabeli?
The other one, no, the last one. You mentioned something that you and your brothers, there was this one night that you went and buried the Freedom Charter in the Kra. So I want to know, what is it that was about the Freedom Charter that made you and your family want to give your lives to it, that you would even die for it? Didn't you guys and apologies, and the comrades by then, didn't you have anything to add or something to remove from the Freedom Charter? Or you all believe that the Freedom Charter was something that reflected and was something that you was aligning with all your beliefs? You didn't have any contradictions with it because you also did not form part of the people that wrote the Freedom Charter, and you just took it as it is and fought for it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bonnie. The next one.
Greetings, I'm Kunakarabo. I also have a question for the speaker that mentioned that his father was arrested before he could even be born. My question is, the fact that your father missed the first few years of your life because of this Freedom Charter, don't you think you are the right person to fight for it, to ensure that the Freedom Charter, all the calls that were in the Freedom Charter are attended to? For an example, the land claims. Don't you think you are the right person, because this has affected your childhood development stages or early age? Thank you.
Okay, you must buy his book, because then you'll see he has already started fighting. Okay, all right, let me go with you right there. And then we wrap up with 2 questions down at the bottom. We have 2 in front row, and then we close.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I think from what we have heard, our main problem comes from the fact that we are living in the aftermath of a negotiated settlement whereby the issues were swept under the carpet. And I want to preface my question to across the panel that the discouragement of the radicalism in the wording of the Freedom Charter, from the day it was drafted in 1955 and subsequently in 1996 when the Constitution was drafted, we are told that the aspirations of the Freedom Charter are reflected in the Constitution. But when you compare the wording between the Constitution and the Freedom Charter, the approach of the Constitution is much more, I would say, for the lack of words, diplomatic as in opposed to radical. What do we do as the youth of this generation in order for us to agitate and conscientize one another amid the rampant and appalling political apathy that is there? Mr. Humeswana said some of the children did not have choice during your times. They had to go into the struggle. Our generation do have a choice not to fight for anything because we have almost everything at our disposal that the system wants us to believe we have. But the aspiration of the Freedom Charter, none of them we can claim that have been achieved 100%. Then what do we do as the youth of this generation in the midst of this political apathy that is sponsored by the Instagrams that Mr. Humeswana was talking about, for us to conscientize ourselves and demand the materialization of the aspiration of the Freedom Charter? Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Last 2 questions. I think I'll start with you, Skep.
Thank you, Program Director. Thank you to the panelists, and thank you to the congregation at large. I have questions and comments, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. As I speak here, I think I'm speaking much softer as in the tones of those who are sitting in front of us. And it is a question of something called age. You know, these people who are sitting in front of you used to be referred to as the young lions. And they would say, "Raw young lions, raw." And that baton has been passed on to those who are in this hall. And I think that is the purpose of this panel discussion, is so that that baton of energy can be carried by you and not those with hypertension and gout and everything. So those with gout can advise from the sidelines. So I would start by saying that one of the mistakes that are made that the panelists also referred to is the mistake that our revolution was a bloodless revolution. And it was a negotiated settlement where people just gave in. You've heard of accounts of people who disappeared, who never came back. There are many, many accounts of people whom are not accounted for even at this stage. And there are still many examples of people who are still being terrorized by the system that we have been fighting ever since. There is still a subsystem of that system, and that is why you don't see the changes you see. And hence this discussion that this struggle continues. It has not stopped or ended, and it needs to be carried by a generation with more vigor and ability. The question that was asked and that was referred to, as the former President Abombe even referred to, us teetering on the brink of an Arab Spring, should not actually be a question. It should actually be a clarion call. Those people who are sitting in front of you, I can describe them in many names that they were called when they made clarion calls. As Comrade Lekheta was mentioning there, that they were mobilizing in all areas. They were called radicals. They were called terrorists. They were called rebels. They were called instigators. And I don't think any one of them has stopped being any of those things. And instigation at a certain level and at a certain age takes a different form. To mobilize those of you who still have their youth ahead and who still have a future and a platform to stand up for your rights, realize that this freedom was not free and that this freedom is still not yet here. One speaker there referred to Frantz Fanon. It was the same Frantz Fanon who would give the contrast between our constitution and the Freedom Charter in saying that the urban black would fight for inclusivity while the rural black will fight to take over the position of the master. So we have, for now, as urban blacks or as those who were in the forefront being privileged, fought to be included and sit in the same suburbs with white people and in the same lecture halls. It is up to you, the rural blacks of the University of Limpopo, being here outside of the comforts of the Johannesburg city lights and all those, to not fight for inclusivity and for sitting in the same halls with privilege, but to fight to take over this country and take over the means of production, and then the people shall share in the wealth of this country and the people shall also govern it. So those principles of the Freedom Charter still exist, are there in the Constitution, could not be corrected because there was no 2/3 majority, but a new revolution is underway and it should continue, but it should not continue in an anarchist fashion, but should be properly directed and effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Last question or comment? Oh, has it been withdrawn? Oh, sorry. That little bit.
Yes, I was going to withdraw it, but I'll ask it anyway. I think that it refers to Dade Alec. I'm wondering, does the Freedom Charter actually make the demand that there should be land expropriation without compensation? Because President Thabo Mbeki keeps coming up, and reminding us that it doesn't actually have that provision. I thought maybe you might want to respond to that.
No, it's a personal view. I don't know what it means. But if you go to the Freedom Charter, it says something that in my mind infers that expropriation without compensation, not only that it's feasible, that it should be done. The actual wording of the Freedom Charter says that black people have been robbed. It uses the word robbed of their birthright to land. I have the Freedom Charter here. Actually, because I knew I'm coming here, I would have quoted it. I have it in my briefcase. So, how else? How else? Because according to the Expropriation Act, the default position is that even if land is expropriated for public interest and so on, the default position is that there must still be compensation. That's what it says, that act. Whereas for me, the way I understand the Freedom Charter and our struggle was based on nothing else and the fundamentals of it about except the question of land. Land is central to everything else. And I remember the late Peter Mukaba, you know what he used to say? And maybe Alec knows because maybe they were teaching the same lessons. That politics, what people call politics, is nothing else but economics in motion. Okay? When a government passes laws regarding what happens to in the labor sector, your right to strike or not to strike, it's about an economic system that they are pushing. So everything about our life, really, for me, begins with land. And the problem, the biggest problem, whether the Freedom Charter said it or not, the biggest problem is that Section 25. That Section 25 makes it more than clear that there shall be no arbitrary dispossession of land, effectively saying that you can't take what we have. What must we do as black people? You equate us to people who have had everything imposed on us in terms of an act, the Land Act, okay? Now you are saying that, no, in Section 25 you are saying no, but we will not do anything unless we do it in a particular way. And if you go to the courts, I can tell you now, the Constitutional Court is only 11 gentlemen and ladies sitting there. 11 of them. With gracious, what kind of wisdom are they having to decide for whether the question, what should be done on the question of land? And these are the people who are supposed to finally, when these matters go to the courts, because every single matter will end up at the Constitutional Court. Do you have any hope that we'll get the redistribution of land through the courts? If you think like that, I can tell you, you better go to sleep.
I can tell you we need the land summit, if you like, just to look at the laws, the Freedom Charter, and I'm sure you will agree that that is not going to be resolved here. But there are very pertinent points being raised by what Ike is saying, because the laws of the land and the policies and the negotiated settlements and the Freedom Charter, which to me was, even the ANC was founded after the Land Act, around the Union of South Africa being solidified and the Land Act being passed 1 year after the ANC was founded. So maybe we have forgotten what the trigger or the detonator of this whole revolution was about, at least in the South African context, at least from the viewpoint of what the ANC was. Okay, I'm going to give Alec the last word. Saki and Martin, not because but the young people, many questions here. I'm not going to take them one by one, but lots of people here are asking what the young people can and should do. So maybe you take that aspect, and then Paul's questions were very clearly directed to him. I'll give him after that the chance to answer, and then Alec will wrap up for us. Please go ahead. Young people, the young lions of this panel. What should young people do? What can they do?
You young people, I mean, the two people who raised questions that I may be intertwined. You have a responsibility to breathe life into the Freedom Charter. If you feel some of the elements of the Freedom Charter, their time has lapsed, you have a responsibility as the now generation to bring the views, to make campaigns, to mobilize, to make it apparent that your voices are heard around your frustration with the Freedom Charter. Somebody said the Freedom Charter it is not cast in stone. You have an opportunity because you are now at tertiary. You have got people who are like-minded. As you are a member of the Youth League, get these topics going. Stop thinking of the next conference. Stop thinking of deploying your people to go and make money there. Think of development. Think of making an impact to the policies that will assist you to achieve what you want to see achieved. Like I was making an example on the issue, fees must fall. That is one of the most significant milestones post-1994 achieved by the student community of the institutes of higher learning. And take you from there and say, on every other program and policy of government, we are going to make to take action, mobilize around, use our exposure at the tertiary institutions to make this impact. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen. We always complain of substance abuse. We complain of the youth that is lazy, sleeping at 12 o'clock, waking up the next day at 12 o'clock. I mean, you sleep half the day, and you want to be part of the economy. Those are the challenges that you must start grappling with. Your conduct in the community, the way you carry yourself, has an impact to those who come after you. So, character is important. Going out of your way to make it apparent that you mobilize correct is important. You come to us, seek advice, we give advice, you do what is supposed to be done. And that will assist the country going forward.
Thank you. Martin?
Thank you, Program Director. I want to, in terms of concluding, sort of, say that in 1980, the ANC declared the year of the Freedom Charter. 1980. And it also declared it the decade of freedom, the 80s, right? In 1985, the ANC reflected on what happened in the first 5 years, and it is in 1985 that the state of emergency was instituted. And in that statement by Oliver Tambo in 1985, he was, on behalf of the NEC, reflecting on how the struggle had evolved up until then, right? Now, I want to say that it is significant that in 1985, the United Nations had declared it the International Year of the Youth. And because it was the International Year of the Youth, the organizations that were aligned to the UDF, more or less, right, intensified the establishment of youth congresses and the youth activism in itself. So when you then see the impact of the Freedom Charter and the Declaration of the 80s as the decade of liberation, you can then make a link between the Freedom Charter and the people who fought for it and how the 80s led to the 90s, right? It is not relevant, in my opinion, to focus on what the contents of the Freedom Charter is, should have been, and in an abstract sense, without looking at where we are today and its contribution. And when people then say, was it radical enough? Radical means different things to different people at different times. Right? Now, what the fellow panelists talk about in terms of the issue of Section 25 of the Constitution and what the radicalness there means. There was one question talks about we need to be more radical, right? But what does being more radical mean, right? Now, I think that there are people who say being radical means that we must take the land from white people or something like that, right, to black people, right, because they have been dispossessed, right? Now, I'm saying that is not radical enough. Being radical is to say we don't need private ownership of land because it changes the fundamental relationships between, right? But that is fundamentally different from what is in the Constitution because the Constitution is based on private ownership of land. It is based on capital relations with that, how we relate to the land. And therefore, yes, where we are, there has been a significant influence of the Freedom Charter. It influenced what the state of emergency has been. And even when we say 40 years, we shouldn't look at 1985 per se, because the 1986 is not a different state of emergency. It is an expansion of the state of emergency. The state of emergency was only lifted, if I'm not mistaken, in 1989, closer to 1990. So we then had a state of emergency from 1985 to closer to 1990, which actually reflected a break in the back of the apartheid system. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And as I keep saying that these are anecdotes that these panel members are sharing. It's up to you as students, as academics, to track them down, drill deeper into some of what they're saying. The land question, as you can hear, he's saying it's not radical enough to just change hands, because then somebody tomorrow will say, you took it from me. He says, deal with the private ownership. Mpo, you were directly asked the question, and I'm sure you represent children of the activists who were affected much more directly. I mean, is there a special role for people whose circumstances are similar to yours to then have more intense push to not betray the ideals of the Freedom Charter? And how would you do that?
Oh, thank you very much. I take off my hat for the people who drafted the Freedom Charter, 1955 as it was. But if you read it today, it is still representing the aspirations of our national democratic revolution. Now, at issue is how to actually to implement it. And I'm saying that the Constitution, to a greater extent, addresses, especially with regard to the rights which are there. But because as it was a negotiated settlement, there are still things that needs to be done. That's why today we can point to the fact that there is still the problem of unemployment, job security is also not, which are enshrined in the Constitution. So I'm saying that the Constitution and all instruments giving effect to it are not cast in stone. And then there is a need for the people of today, youngsters, maybe government, if it is blended with a number of youth within itself, actually to shadow the older people, generations to actually come in, they can actually come and give a laudable contribution to the implementation of the Constitution and all laws that are accompanying it. I'm saying that the Constitution is designed to give effect to the Freedom Charter, but obviously having been drawn in 1996, prior to that the other interim constitution, obviously in practice there may be other things, bottlenecks that may be there to say, oh, this thing, when we drew the Constitution, this was what was intended. But obviously, then we can, to give effect to these current problems, we need to do this and that. So I'm saying that there is still a bigger role to ensure that the clauses that are not well implemented, they can implement, and that's where I see your role in them. It's not cast in stone. It is something to be discussed, and even the legislation that gives effect to it need to be looked at. So that is my answer to this thing. We have a bigger role to play. The Freedom Charter, it is very good as it is. To this day, I was reading it yesterday again. It's the best document.
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's see how the national dialogue will pan out. Last but not least, Alec, you were in the trenches, man. Every time I look at Oliphant's River, I see your face. And because I grew up on the banks of that river across from Appel, I had no idea what was happening in those bushes and on those hills. Please tell me, you talked about the national dialogue as people having to reflect. Are we losing the ability to dream big? And is this the time, faced with all these challenges that we are faced with, and the deferred Freedom Charter, to reignite our ability to be passionate about what we want, and maybe use this opportunity of the national dialogue to relaunch a different ethos and get the momentum back on track of the revolution? After all, you went to Robben Island for it.
I was taken there kicking and screaming. I got arrested. It wasn't on holiday. I didn't want to go there. I made mistakes and got captured by the enemy, and yeah, and I learned from my mistakes. And some of the things I think we need to, as a way forward. Where to from here? What is to be done? That is the question. During our time as young people, we found the Freedom Charter. It was drawn long before we were born. I was born after the Freedom Charter. But when I saw it, it said, no, you've got to do something. This thing makes sense. That's gedachte indeed. Gedachte. But now, what is this that we need to do to ensure that these freedoms that are talked about are realized? And you don't start by taking a gun, because anyway, all my life, the only relationship I've had with guns before was that they were always pointing in my direction until I was at the other side of the gun. That is when things changed, and you are able now to talk, knowing that, look, this is what I want, and if what I want doesn't happen, so obviously it means we are going different ways. So Shangane Bushi. But I'm saying we were young people that time. We were your age. So the challenge is with you. At our age, we took over. We wanted to make sure that what our parents did, we add more speed and oomph to that. Matayama, you are missing it here. You know, we need to organize going this way. These are the people. You know, you can not only be talking about organizing intellectuals. You'll end up with an intellectual debate all the way, all the time on TV. But at the same time, you need to have intellectuals who've got the capacity to be active, not only talk, but physically beyond the ground. And that starts from the beginning. The beginning means when you are at the university here, you know what your rights are as a university student. Do you allow your rights to be trampled on? Or if the rights of the next student, of the person next to you, are trampled upon and you keep quiet, then it means you are a sellout. Because it means you are agreeing with whatever negativity that is happening to other students. There are issues of funding. Where is solidarity among students? During our times, people will go on strike because some students cannot be admitted because they don't have money. Even those who have money will say, we are not going to attend classes until this, our fellow students are catered for. But now it seems like everybody is for themselves and the devil takes the hindmost. The question of solidarity is the very most important thing that you must feel for the next person. There are issues related to health and well-being of students. What are we doing around those as students? Are we putting pressure on the Department of Higher Education to provide facilities for us for those purposes? That is where Umzabalazo starts. And that for you as as young people who are at university, you are being trained here as managers. People will be managing the economy going forward in the next. I see lots of future managers and ministers and engineers and all. In the past, when people came to this university and they want to do BSc, the lecturer would look at them and say, how many are you? About 400. BSc. I don't see any scientists in this class. I see lots of carpenters and plumbers. So you rather make a move quickly so that you don't waste this year. I'm advising you to change faculty and go somewhere. Leave this science thing. You're not going to make it. So what are we doing? I mean, you know, we don't have such words of discouragement to students. Our lecturers, the administration, everybody are encouraging people to study whatever they want to study. And again, there's this talks about corruption that we see every day in the country. Read about it in the papers. Perceived and actual corruption, because they are the actual corruption and perceived corruption are related somehow, but that is a discussion for another time. And that you, as these new executives, as these people who are in the making of becoming managers and leaders, future leaders of the country, are you going to allow yourselves to be corrupted going forward? You should be taking those decisions that anyone who graduates from this university and they are to be entrusted with responsibility, they will never take a bribe. Re ka se tšee tšotšo. Bana ba go graduate ko TEF ba tšere sephetho ka ngwaga o itseng gore they will never take tšotšo when they are, you know. And those who will be going into teaching, that ba ka se tle sekolong ba tagile. Because teachers go to school when we live drunk, some of them, and you know, and you commit yourself from here that we will never do that, and we will do the right thing to ensure that our people's lives get improved. So that is the challenge that I say facing students. Ours was, if I graduate and I've done engineering, I'll make sure that when we build a bridge, I'll leave a space for explosives if somebody's to put explosives in that bridge and demolish it. But ours should be, we need to make sure that if there is 20 rand that goes to this community, we need to be able that people will enjoy every cent of that 20 rands. It will be shared accordingly.
Thank you very much.
The challenge is in your court. The ball is in your court.
It is in your hands now. Madiba would like to say that. Okay, let's give a round of applause to Mpon Chabeleng, Aik Mutong, Elegin Chabeleng, Dr. Martin Sikapelo, and Sagile Kheta. I apologize, Program Director. We took longer than we maybe should have, but we started late. So I just hope that this panel has set the tone and has reminded young people of South Africa, especially the academics who are here, that a vision is only a vision. But the choice to act on it is yours. I'll just close with this. I won't read the whole Freedom Charter because it's too long. But just remember what the people of the Congress of the People said in June 1955, June 26, when they signed this. We, the people of South Africa, declare for our country and the world to know that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, and that no government can justly claim authority unless it is based on the will of the people. That our people have been robbed of their birthright of land, liberty, and peace by a form of government founded on injustice and inequality. That our country will never be prosperous or free until all our people live in brotherhood, enjoying equal rights and opportunities. That only a democratic state based on the will of the people can secure all their birthright without hesitation, without distinction rather of color, race, sex, or belief. And therefore we, the people of South Africa, black and white, together as equals, as countrymen and brothers, adopt this Freedom Charter, and we pledge ourselves to strive together, sparing neither strength nor courage until the democratic changes here set out have been won. Now we can't read the Freedom Charter, but the 10 elements again: the people shall govern, all national groups shall have equal rights, the people shall share in the country's wealth, the land shall be shared among those who work it, all shall be equal before the law, all shall enjoy equal human rights, there shall be work and security, the doors of learning and culture shall be opened, there shall be houses, security and comfort, there shall be peace and friendship. And in closing it says, let all people who love their people and their country now say as we say here, these freedoms we will fight for side by side throughout our lives until we have won our liberty. It doesn't matter, young people, what you are faced with today. The things that bother you fall within these 10 principles. But you are faced with drugs. You are faced with prostitution, GBV. You are faced with human trafficking. You are faced with all kinds of evil. But in the end, unless and until you commit yourselves to fighting, until you have defeated them, your children will ask one day what exactly it is that you are doing. Now, today we had the author of this book. These are people who are called old now. The Lion of the North, Pitan Chabelain, there is his son, and his other son is here. Tomorrow we will have the author of this book, Undeterred, Reminiscences of an MK cadre about the struggle, family, and business. He's alive. He runs an hotel in Jane First. He is a family man, he's a businessman, but his stories are very moving, all driven by the same thing. When it was illegal to say I'm an ANC member, these are some of the people who took it upon themselves to pay the ultimate price if necessary. What are you willing to do? What sacrifices are you willing to make? And as a scholar, how deep are you going to go in understanding the Freedom Charter and the freedoms that what it took to fight for these? So I cannot speak forever. I shouldn't, and I hope that this panel managed to contribute meaningfully to what else will be happening here. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow again when we have another panel. One of the panel members is right here, and they will be very exciting. They'll be talking more about the role of business, the role of the church, and of course, people like Laduma, who will be talking about what it meant to be a member of MK and live to see freedom and then fight more struggles after freedom would have supposed to have been attained. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope we made our contribution. Thank you again, panel members.
Thank you very much, Baba Khulu. We've learned a lot. Many of the stories that we see on the documentaries, at least now, like you have heard firsthand. I believe that our elders are still around, so I know some of the critical questions you couldn't ask them here, but I believe they are available to address, some of those concerns. Sorry, like my mic was on this side. Now we'll get to the, more academic, critical conversation. The conversation about the Freedom Charter, involves a lot of political actors. For instance, Izwe is a direct response to the first clause of the Charter that claims that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. We know that, it led to the split, in the ANC, and the formation of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania. And, that those contestations are what we aim to reflect on, particularly, claims and counter-narratives, that seek to challenge, the Charter's orthodoxy, and of course, those that aim to illuminate, the Charterist narrative. So this is basically bringing the debate, of the 80s that, our elders alluded to, between the Charterists and, Amazimzim. So basically, this is where we will, this is where we are getting at, so that at least we have clarity, we are able to, critically come to our own understanding of the issues. The elders have, of course, shared their experiences, and of course, it is now upon you, to, critically reflect on what they've contributed, and also just taking into account some of the, counter narratives. So we duly apologize, in terms of the time, elderly people, I know with my grandmother, I would go and greet. And then, I will spend 40 minutes while we are still busy with greeting. So please bear with us. We thank you, for the time, like just taking your time off, all the important things that you have to do, like the high blood checks, like the sugar diabetes treatment. Siyabonga kakhulu. Can you please give them a round of applause? Yeah. Okay. Our panelists, are free to, perhaps just, like take a convenience break as they, go down. I know old people can't really sit down for long. So perhaps, like they can just stretch their feet. So we will quickly move to our keynote session. For now, we will break for lunch at 2:30, at exactly 2:30. I would like to invite Mr. Mjalela, who is going to be the session chair. Can we kindly request that we observe the order that we had? Like the old people have passed on the baton to us. You were quiet when they were here. Now it's me, a young person, you want to make noise. Mr. Mjalela.
Sasana.